And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Two Nobodies Who Know Nothing. I know that said Shaping Success, but we're working on another logo right now. If you can do me a favor before we get going, please head over to Apple Podcasts. Make sure you like, share, give a review. Let us know what you think of what we're doing. Robert and I do this every Monday. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/Wes Tankersley. That's patreon.com/WESTANKERSLEY and support the show for as little as $3 a month. Help us keep it going. We're working on things like new logos and stuff like that. These things all cost money, and it'd be awesome to be able to kind of put some of that towards it. So, by the way, Robert, we have a logo on its way, and I'm pretty excited what I've seen of it so far. So hopefully we'll have that coming up shortly.
Well, you know, the expectations are pretty low when there's two nobodies who know nothing. So you don't have to, there's not a high bar, right?
There's not, but you know, I get feedback, and I don't know how much you get because we don't really ever talk about like the numbers or what's going on and things like that. But I get feedback from friends of mine who, you know, Jay sends me all the time. He's like, "You and Robert got a really good show, and people should be watching that." So, you know, when you hear that from those people, it's pretty good to know that someone who's been podcasting for just as long as I have respects what we're doing. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's excellent. That's very, very nice to hear.
Yeah. So what do you got going on? What's on your mind today, Robert?
Well, you know, I've been focused on this idea that our major currency in the world is our attention, right?
Uh-huh.
That it's the thing that matters most is, and it's what advertisers and everybody wants to get. They want to get our attention. They want to captivate us. They want to move us. But again, it's all about attention, and we need to be able to, how do you say, manage our intention in such a way that we're reaching our own values and goals. In other words, are we taking care of our family? Are we taking care of our friends? Are we taking care of ourselves? Or are we being, you know, pulled in all different directions in a somewhat chaotic way by media and others desiring to captivate our attention?
You know, it's amazing to me that we are having this conversation right now because I just literally was sitting in my living room drinking coffee, waiting for this to fire up and kind of scrolling through TikTok a little bit. And someone posted a video. It was on Fox News. Oh my gosh, people are going to be like, "Oh, Fox News, you know, not the CNN, not Fox News. You know, like it can't be true. It's on Fox News." But they were talking about, it was a psychologist who was talking about how his patients have shifted to 75% of them having what everyone calls TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome. So like everything that is causing them problems in their life has to do with Trump. And so just like you were talking about, it's where your attention is at. And I think that the TikTok algorithm is something that will pull you, or Instagram or Facebook. They all try to pull you in that direction. And how many times have we been sitting there thinking, you know, I need a chair in your brain, and you say it out loud, "Hey, I'm going to look for some chairs," or something like that. Next thing you know, it's all that shows up in your feed, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you hate something so much, no matter what it is, whether it be the left, the right, you know, whatever you're looking at, those apps will pull that attention to you. And we spend most of our time on our devices, right? So this is kind of one of those things where they do whatever they can to get your attention, to keep you in the moment.
We did some research on a concept called flooding the zone, which is what Steve Bannon had said that the president was attempting to do in his campaigns and through his presidency, was basically flood the zone with news and therefore be the prime mover in your attention span, occupying, living rent-free in between your ears. What we found was really interesting. We found that it was the New York Times, it was the editorial decision-making of people like the New York Times that were allowing Trump to do it. It wasn't that he was doing something so special. It's they were using, as you call it, that Trump derangement syndrome to drive them to respond to everything.
Right.
In other words, it's the same thing you can think of in baseball, right? If a pitcher can get you looking for something, right? If you're looking for a fastball, right? That's all he wants to do, is he wants to drive what your expectation is. Why? Because there's a chance you're toast or a curve, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot about what you're expecting, those expectations, where your attention is. And this has put us in a position where they are driving it, and they're driving it because it brings eyes to the pages. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? They say, oh, Trump's doing this. Well, yeah, but you're allowing him to. All you have to do is make the editorial decision not to put him on the front page.
Yeah, and I think that he's a pretty good marketing guy. I mean, that's kind of the thing that he's done his whole life is market. And so, like, you look at what he's doing, no matter what it is, he's always trying to find a way to make that ring in your head, you know. MAGA. I mean, think about it. Like, he's made this MAGA, Make America Great Again. It's the number one thing in your head. Now everyone's calling you a MAGA Republican because you want America to be great, and so you're a bad person, you know. But then he'll call Sleepy Joe Biden. You know, like he's adding these monikers so that this gets repeated over and over again. So it's almost like subliminal messaging. But it goes the other way because the Democrats are doing the same thing. They're telling you that he's a racist. They're telling you that he's a fascist. They're telling you that he's a Nazi. So, like, these are the things that you associate with them. And it's kind of his fault because you think about what he's doing. He's name calling. Well, they're just coming back with it's like a high school, you know, burn session. You know, we're going to come back with something that's worse. And it's kind of funny to me how people believe these things, and then you have people getting assassinated. You have all these things being said that are not true. I was watching or listening to Adam Carolla the other day, and he was talking about talking to Robert F. Kennedy's wife. I can't remember her name. I see her face right now. Cheryl Hines, I think is her name. But he's talking to her, and she's just like, they invited me on The View, and then all they did was tell me that Robert doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not a doctor, this, that, blah, 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 blah. And then she's like, well, you know that there's only been 3 doctors that are actually Department of Health Secretary or whatever, what Robert F. Kennedy is. 3 ever. And how many have there ever been? You know, 3 are doctors. Yeah. Right. So to me, it's like, okay, so they come on there with half-baked ideas just to prove a point, and they are proving their own point, but no one really points out what's really actually going on. It's just amazing to me.
Amazing that people allow any of this to change their attention, their focus. I go back to the core values that we all have. Our core values are to care for those that we love, our friends, who we care deeply about, and ourselves, who we should care a lot about.
Right.
And that's where our value and our attention should be. I mean, again, I'm not picking on any side, but right. This is a circus, and I'm not in any of the 3 rings. So I don't care what you do because I don't look. Do I scan headlines every day? Yes. I scan headlines to see if there's anything, I see any major move, but I don't care about people's propositions where they accuse one person of one thing and one person of another. I don't care. It's not inflammatory to me because I'm not that person.
Well, it's crazy because you look at like the shutdown that just went on, you know, like that just happened, and you look at that and how it's being pointed, everyone's pointing the finger, but the reality is that they're all the problem. It's all of them that are the problem. The Democrats are trying to get something that they want. The Republicans are trying to get something that they want, and they're just going to fight back and forth. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you know.
Well, I am absolutely unequivocally for firing every one of them if they can't reach a budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Both sides. I don't care. You haven't reached a budget since the Obama administration. You're doing CRs, continuing resolutions. My theory is simple. It's easy. One of the constitutional mandates of your job is to run the government. If you cannot reach a budget, we should immediately dissolve the government and start over with elections.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, all you have to do is start putting something, incentivize, change. The things are that everybody in government who works for the government, who draws a paycheck, suffers. Congress doesn't.
Right.
So we're incentives for them to do their job. There aren't any. Okay. Change the incentive structure. And that's real simple. But again, that's not something that creates theater that the media can cover. So remember, everybody likes it. Both sides like fighting because it gets the media's attention. The media likes it because what? They can use it to get eyes on the screen. So realize where the incentives lie. There are no incentives to solving problems. Why? Because they go away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing we were talking about, like these dating apps. We've talked about that multiple times, where like if they can keep your attention, it doesn't really matter. As long as they can keep you in there, they're not going to give you someone who's a perfect fit, because if they do that, then they'll never get you back. They're going to lose people, and that's really what I see is like Congress is doing this. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that they ever need to do is put freaking term limits on these people, which they don't. It's insane to me that people like Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, these people are in there forever. Why can't you put term limits on a president? Why can you not put term limits on the people who are surrounding him and are also making the decisions, that are ultimately making the decisions?
Right, but I mean, you're asking the people who are in themselves. Come on, really? Where's the incentive there? We go back, let's roll back to having a constitutional Congress where all the states get together and change the Constitution. Like you said, add term limits. Why? The people in there are not going to do it for you.
Right.
So if you don't do it, if the states don't do it, it's not going to get done. This is another one of those do not solve crisis. Well, because it's in the media and it gets me if I'm a congressman, it gets a microphone in my face,
Right.
and I get to talk to the media. If you see my face, you'll vote for me next time.
Yep.
Unearned media.
Yeah, it's sad, and that's again, we're talking about political scenario right now, but that is just like we were talking about. There is certain things on everything that you do that is where your brain heads. I hadn't seen TikTok is kind of amazing because it's usually pretty good about its algorithm. But like last night, I'm sitting there watching this video of a guy restoring in like a '60s Tonka truck backhoe
Right.
toy. Like I've watched those videos before, and they're interesting to me. And I'll sit there and I'll just like be enthralled with this guy sandblasting this old metal toy because they were metal back then. And then next thing you know, you got 3-4 more of those videos popping up on your feed, and whatever it is, whatever that attention is, that's where you put it. I think in life, we always talk about like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So like the person who is complaining the most, the person who is loudest, that's the person who gets the most attention. And so look at your children. It's kind of the same way. They are screaming and yelling because they want your attention. How are they going to get it? They're going to scream, because if they're quiet, then you don't know that they're there. But if they scream, then you hear them,
Back to the incentives. What are their incentives to be quiet? None. What are their incentives to, remember, as you said, the squeaky wheel gets attention regardless of whether it gets the grease, right?
Yep.
But if you're not the squeaky wheel, if you're the wheel that's just going around doing its job, you get no attention. Again, that's part of wired into kind of human nature. The sad part for us is we let that dominate our consciousness, our top of mind. That doesn't need to dominate our top of mind. We need to be better managers of our attention and say, hey, you know what? When I've got a few minutes to take care of attention, I need to call a couple of my friends and say hi.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's,
Instead,
that's the big thing too. Like you think about that. As we were talking a little bit earlier, that was going through my mind as well. Is like back to like the political portion of this scenario. You allow these 75% of people who have this TDS are allowing this guy to piss them off enough that all they can do is talk or think about it. Now, what can they do about it? Nothing, right? Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot they can do about it. He is the president. He's going to be the president for the next 4 years. And I try not to fixate on these things. Like they pop up in my feed and I'll watch them and I'll be interested, like I'm seeing it, but I don't fixate on it. But I have family members who do. Like, this is the end of the world, like this is, oh my gosh, this guy's in office, he's doing this, he's doing that. It is one of those things that they allow them to be able to take over their thought process,
It was funny. I was talking last night to a candidate that's running for office, running for Congress, and he made a comment about his legislative record. And I said, I looked at your legislative record. I literally downloaded everything the person signed. Because you can find, listen, you can find anything. And so, again, it becomes an issue of, are you effective in Congress? Well, this person was pretty effective because you look at the amount of legislation they sponsored. Now, how much of it got into law was a different issue, but at least they were busy. That's a
Right.
positive.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, like you sit there and you think about like all the things that there are. They're gonna throw out the bad things. It's just like these comedians. Like you look at like what was it, Kevin Hart a couple of years ago and Dave Chappelle. They say something 10 years ago and now they're canceled. It's like
Yeah.
I don't feel that way now. I wouldn't say that now. Not that it really matters. I mean, it's. Have you seen the swing of things? It's amazing to me how many people say things that they didn't say, 10 years ago, but now it's coming back that they say whatever they want. And you listen to like a podcast and you'll hear someone saying some stuff like, I'm still afraid. Like if I say that, I'm going to get canceled, and I'm just some guy in Idaho.
No, it's true. The sensitivity stuff is, somebody tried to explain what a microaggression was. And I went, huh? I was really, really confused when I listened to it. I said, so anytime someone does something that doesn't fit your sensibilities and however they may be shaped is a microaggression?
Right.
I'm like, okay, wow, fair enough.
Well, it's crazy because like if you go back to it, like there's certain things that happen in your life that you cannot control. And if you can control what's in front of you, which is your feelings, your thoughts, the things that go on in front of you, it's completely different. It's kind of mind freeing. I have some family members who go through things, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, things like that. And it's like, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so this person has done something that has put them either, in jail, that put them in prison, did something, right? Like, and sitting there like, oh my God, I'm so tired of this. I don't like this. Like you get all upset about it. What you have to realize is like, how does it directly affect you? What does it do to affect you? Do you still have two good kids that go to school that are, good behavior, this and that, good grades, all that stuff, a great wife, all this stuff? Like, so does it affect your immediate thing? Did you put the life preserver on first? Are you taking care of the things that you can control? And I think that that's where we get to the point with like anything like with Trump being president, can you control that? No, we voted for that, right? People voted for that. Could you control Biden being president? No. What you can control is you are the one person out of the millions of people in this country that put the name down that you wanted, and that's all you can control. Now you have to let it sort itself out. And so if I sit there and I fixate on the fact that I don't like something that he said, I don't like that he called a name, I don't like that he did this, I don't like that he did that, your quality of life, your immediate quality of life goes down because you are fixated on that. You're spending this attention worrying about what he said about someone else when you have this other family that you just talked about. You have your kids, you have your wife, you have your immediate household that you need to be taken care of, and you continue to fixate on something that you cannot control, but you can control how your household is. You can control the people that you're raising. You can make that difference. So say you got 4 people in your household, and I'm using mine as an example because that's what I have. You teach them what you think is correct, and you teach them to be the student and the people and the ability so that they can make the change that now you have 4 more votes, or whatever it is. But you don't push your kids to, I don't know, it's kind of funny how people push their family to do certain things, and this is the way it is, or I'm not going to be friends with you. And as we come upon Thanksgiving, it's funny. I saw a meme the other day where people were saying, make sure you bring up politics at Thanksgiving. That way you don't have to worry about talking to those people the rest of the year.
Well, there's a concept in political science called so the point is this. I know what you think you're seeing in the national, but okay, let's assume for the sake of argument, you wanted to change the education system.
Right.
Well, are you going to go to the Department of Education, or are you going to run for your local school board?
Right.
Okay. I would run for my local school board and make politics local so that I could affect my kids. Now, from my local affecting my kids, a lot of what happens in education is controlled at the state. Well, here's the thing. Fix your local, right? Fix your immediate surroundings as best you can. Then decide how you can legislatively change what's in my case in Austin, right?
Yep.
That's huge impact. Here's the thing. If you just affect those two, you don't have to worry about what the Department of Education is doing. That becomes minor because you have such a huge impact at the local and the state level. But again, if you want to argue about what someone's doing or what they're not doing in Washington, really? Has so little impact on us. But there's so much more we can actually control. And instead of complaining, run for your school board.
Yeah. Do something about it.
You can make a difference. And I mean, you can run for mayor of your small town. Now, I agree that if you live, in my case, in Houston, yeah, you're probably not going to run for mayor. But, I happen to live in a small suburb where there is a mayor. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the difference out here in total number of votes is probably 3,000 people make a difference in who gets elected.
Right.
So you can make a difference at your local level. So instead of complaining and throwing stones at Washington, if you want to be politically active, you want to make a difference, start local.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We just went through some local elections here, and I'm sure you did too, but there's a couple things that are going on in Middleton, in the city that I live in. They've been trying to pass a bond levy to build a new elementary school here for quite a while, which they very much so need. And my thoughts have changed on it a little bit too, but they can't get enough people out to vote for it. Like, there literally is, you need a 60%, so you need a super majority or whatever. They need 60% vote for versus against, and they can't get it. They never get it, which is a whole nother problem, because I think that people who are a little bit older, and I listen to my parents talk about this, but they're like, well, I don't want to pay taxes for them to put a new school in there, blah, 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 blah. But then you have to think about the bigger picture about how that works, because there are a bunch of people who don't want to pay more taxes. However, when it's time for those people, like my generation, your generation is going through this right now, you're not going to have enough people to care for you. We don't have enough doctors to care for us. And there is going to be this big, giant population of your generation that's going into healthcare, and it's going to stop my generation from getting the healthcare that I need, because I can't find a doctor to, help me if I have a heart problem or something like that. Right. And so it goes back down to, like, if we're not putting money into our education system because the older generation doesn't want to pay taxes, then how are we going to have educated people to take care of the next generation? And if you don't think of it that way, other than, well, I already put my kids through school, so I don't need to put someone else's kids through school. It's a completely different thought process than that, but that's the small thinking that they have. They don't think about the bigger picture of what their taxes actually affect. Now, does it mean that there's too much taxes, like we're paying too much? Because who knows? Like here, the population keeps going up and they collect more and more money. Well, where's that money going? No one knows. And that's the problem. But we sit here and we're like, oh, nope, I ain't paying any taxes. I'm going to go vote against that because I don't want another school here. Meanwhile, we have an elementary school that's less than a mile away from here with 9 portable classes, and they're going to have to add more because they don't have enough room.
Well, and again, being not short-sighted, one of the things that affects your home value is the quality of your elementary, junior high, and high school that's in the district in which you live.
Right.
And if you have quality schools and quality teachers, what happens to the value of your homes? So I know people don't get this, but a lot of times they're closed universes. So let's just say this elementary, junior high, and high school had 6,000 homes around it. And it's a closed universe, meaning that you can't add any more homes. So those 6,000 homes will go up and down in value based upon the quality of the teachers and the facilities in those 3 institutions. So in other words, if you want your home value to go up, right, the quality of people wanting to come into that 6,000 home universe goes up based upon the quality of those institutions.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple. That's not short-sighted. And you could be a person without kids and say, you know what happens to the high school, junior high, and high school? Big deal for me. Why? Because Because guess when all of a sudden you don't want to be in the school district anymore, what happens?
Yep.
Everybody knows what happens, right? This is one of the biggest challenges with inner city America, right? We got into the position where nobody anymore. What happened? Well, the institution went down inside there.
Yeah.
This is, long-term thinking is so much more important than thinking about, hey, I don't want to pay more taxes now. Well, is there a real justification for needing a new elementary? If there is, hey, come on, let's start thinking long-term. What does that mean?
Yep. Yeah. It's crazy to think about the things. Those are things that, again, like you can control, and you have to really think about the bigger picture more than how does it affect my pocketbook. I mean, and I'm not saying, someone's right or wrong, because there are valid opinions on both sides of it. However, if you just look at what's actually going on and what the big picture, the impact of what you are doing is, I'm not saying everyone needs to go to college, but the primary thing used to be get through high school, right? That was get your diploma, because that is one thing that you can do. And if we're stopping these kids from getting a quality education, who is going to take care of us, whether they go to college or not? Who's going to be the person who is going to take care of this growing population, which is on the decline as well. But if you think about it, in the end of it, my doctor, I just had a checkup with him, and he was talking to me about like secondhand smoking and lung cancer coming around, where we see more cases of lung cancer in people who do not smoke now. Well, we're seeing the results of what happened in the 70s. We are finally seeing that, where there is so many different things going on that did happen when they're like, oh, secondhand smoke doesn't kill anyone. Well, it actually does, but we just haven't seen the effects of it. Vaping. Now, we don't smoke anymore. Now we vape. Vape is much better for you because there's no smoke and there's no this and there's no that and blah, blah, blah. Energy drinks. We haven't seen the effects of these things because we haven't been taking these things in long enough to know that it's a bad thing or a good thing. And kind of the same thing with this school situation. When you take away the education, we will not see the effects. I know personally that I am seeing the effects of what happened with COVID when we took the kids out of the social scenario, when we added these phones to everything that we have, when you see those things happening and kids can't communicate, kids can't be involved in certain things. But we're not going to see what really happens for a couple more years when that generation graduates and they can't communicate, or they can't go to college, or they can't get their homework done,
Right, and that's back to your original point, which was everybody concerned about Washington and what the president does or doesn't do, and you've got an issue with needing an elementary school. Forget what's happening in Washington. You guys need an elementary. This is back to the local level that everybody's attention. Hey, go turn off the national news. Why? Well, because we have a real issue here. Okay, we need to communicate. Now, if you don't think it's a real issue, why do we have portable buildings?
Right.
Okay, again, what are we going to do? What are we going to do as citizens of this town to impact our kids?
Yeah.
That people should be actually talking about. Instead, let's talk about something they have absolutely no control over.
Yep.
Sadly.
Well, the good news is, and I'll end it with this, but the good news here is that the bond didn't pass enough times that now the federal government's going to get involved, and they're actually going to give the money because they've tried enough to pass this levy that there's a back thing where now the federal government gets involved and the school will get built. So it's just going to be built on a federal level, which is definitely necessary, and the taxpayers of Middleton aren't going to have to pay for it, but they'll pay for it in the long run, I'm sure. Somehow, some way, we're going to get back to us. But
it's not magic.
Yeah.
It's not magic. Yeah. And that's the other thing is you people keep thinking that everything's magic. Mm-hmm. It's not magic. Okay, money has to come from somewhere.
Yep. It's not just laying around. It doesn't get
No.
I can't say it doesn't get printed, because it does get printed sometimes.
It does. It does.
So, yeah. All right, Robert, well, thanks for hanging out. We will catch y'all next week. And like I said, if you can please go over to Apple Podcasts, give us a like, share, and review. Join the Patreon at Wes Tankersley, or patreon.com/Wes Tankersley, and help support the show. Until next time, this is Robert and I, two nobodies who know nothing.
Have a wonderful week, everyone.
Yeah.